If you look around my office, you might have realized I have kind of a love for dark and twisted cartoons. And a lot of that may be because I grew up with a lot of dark and twisted cartoons. Now, I'm not talking about the ones like Batman or the ones meant for older kids. I'm talking about the ones meant for little kids and probably shouldn't have been made for little kids. And I loved the hell out of them. I loved how much they scared me. I loved how every time you got through one, you felt a little tougher. So I'm doing a series reacting and reviewing them. We're gonna analyze how creative they are, how dark they are, and if the dark twisted tone was warranted. So join me in taking a look at some dark tunes. Don't worry, Taz will find love eventually. As for this episode, this gets dark. A Young Taz Fancy was released in 1993. It's part of a criminally underrated show and it deserves more love, so we're gonna give it that today. Let's take a look. So this is from a show called Tazmania. It was by some of the same people who made Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. It came out around the same time, and a lot of people don't talk about it, and it's really good, especially as an adult. As a kid, I liked it, but I found I liked Tiny Toons a lot more. And the reason I didn't get into it too much as a kid, because I loved Taz, that's one of my favorite Looney Tunes, it's kind of a dumb reason. And it's the backgrounds. The backgrounds in this are inked, so it looks similar to what's in the foreground. I usually like backgrounds that are a little bit smooth, so it makes the foreground stand out more, but that's not a big deal. There's a lot of shows that do that. The other reason is, I hate the color yellow. Literally, the opening lyric to this show is that the sky is always yellow, rain or shine.
The sky is always yellow in rain or shine.
So even as a kid watching this show, I'm enjoying it, but I'm like, oh my god, that's way too much yellow. So it's a silly reason not to really get into it, but like I said, I've learned from the error of my ways, and I was a dumb kid. What do you want? Now in the show, Taz has a family, but he's not the father. He's more like the teenage son, and he has like a little brother and sister. But again, it's a flexible reality because they don't really go to school. There's humans who hunt them, yet there's alligators who drive cars and platypuses and stuff like that. So it's very flexible, and the whole idea of the show was to have fun mainly through dialogue. It's actually an overwritten show in terms of the dialogue. When you know the main character is someone who really can't talk well, that's pretty funny. And I will point out too, this is really an episode that only gets dark at the end, but when has that stopped us before? And yeah, it does get pretty dark. Speaking of Tiny Toons, I got a Buster here now. So you see Taz is feeling really blue, all the animals around him seem to be hooking up, and he's got no one.
Well, this is an interesting development,
And this is one of the characters who constantly tries to hunt Taz. He's from a tribe, and he's called Bush Lad, voiced by, I'm pretty sure, a sped up Rob Paulsen. Now, he can get his voice very high, but I don't know. I feel like that's just his regular voice, and they sped it up a bit.
The prey is lamenting his solitude in this, the season of Amour.
See what I mean about the writing? It is very purposefully overwritten, and in my opinion, really funny.
Conquering the beast and triumphantly returning him to my village. A motivational device which has been adequately explained and re-explained in earlier episodes.
There's almost a music to the way these characters talk. Give it a chance if you haven't seen it. I don't think it's streaming, but you can get on DVD, and it's pretty good. Okay, everyone's a critic.
Yoo-hoo!
I do feel bad for making fun of the backgrounds, because they actually have a little bit of an early Chuck Jones look to them. They're not trying to look realistic, and they're definitely not trying to look like the characters in the foreground either. It does its job okay, I just wish the black lines weren't there, and man, I just wish it wasn't yellow. But that's a personal preference. Alright, so this is a classic trope of old school cartoons where someone dresses up as a female to lure in the male lead. But I like them playing around with how this costume actually works. Like, I love him just opening up her mouth to have his face shine through. That's almost grotesque. And these are very clear reactions from Tex Avery cartoons who started off with Warner Brothers but then went to MGM and created things like Droopy, and he was best known for his crazy huge reactions and then would suddenly scale back, well, like within a frame. Like he would just change things and go so fast at a time when they just weren't doing that in cartoons, not at that speed. And what I like is they will mix in these big reactions, but they'll also give him kind of these cute little subtle reactions too. Some of these, he actually looks pretty adorable. That sounds like me whistling. I can't whistle either, but it's much funnier when he tries to not do it.
I mean, after all, we are primitive beasts ruled by our primitive instinct.
I really love, though, that even though he's trying to be someone else, he talks exactly the same. He doesn't alter the way he talks or even the pitch of his voice.
What does a girl have to do? Throw herself at him? I believe I have the brute's attention.
That is a great show. Again, I didn't want to give the idea that it was all dialogue based. There's some really good slapstick in this, and like really creative slapstick. Whoa, shit, what's this rated again? Oh. Again, the show changes a bit as you get older.
What say we go for a little ride in the Tunnel of Love,
Can't tell if that's a Go-Go reference or not. Looks pretty similar.
My goodness, perhaps I should have set the trap downstream.
Let's give Taz a little bit of credit here. You know, he, as she is still hitting on him, saying, yes, yes, follow me, trying to get him into that cage. It doesn't work, so he thinks he's invited. He did wait for her to make the first move here, but he's also a horny-ass teen, so he's gonna act like this.
I'm not what you think! See for yourself, dullard!
And again, some great, kind of risque humor here, too, for a kid's show. He's trying to get out of the costume, show that he was lying, it's actually Bush Lad, and, yeah, it looks like she's trying to do something else, which just excites him more. And even then, there's a joke that tries to get a little ahead of the game before that's even brought up.
It's the lady from Broadcast Standards and Practices!
Yeah, see, he knows how this is looking. Pretty funny callback to Pepe Le Pew, now that that's all that we have of him. Who wants to be Pepe Le Pew? He's the loser in the cartoon. Nobody's gonna do it. Okay, that's a time for another video. I love this setup where there's suddenly just doors that clearly Taz set up somehow, and she still opens it and goes in, not putting together that he's gonna be there doing some sort of romantic trick.
Yo, man.
I like too, he's almost going through time periods of what romantically worked in the past, but clearly doesn't now. Also, the image of Taz playing the electric guitar with his tongue is one of my personal favorites. Great setup here, there's a door. Did she actually get out of this? Turns out she's trapped and he closes the door behind her, even though there's plenty of room to go around there.
Hold your advances at once!
Yeah, okay, that hasn't aged great. I think because he was playing hard to get it, it worked. He's assuming she's doing the same thing. But that's, yeah, that didn't age great.
One more step and I'll jump! Love certainly is strange.
Really good expressions on this show, too. I couldn't find the animation company that made it, but I know I recognized it from some Tiny Toons and Animaniacs episodes. They have really exaggerated cheeks, and the teeth are usually kind of these just white blocks, and they really have one eye down, one eye really big, and you can recognize it really quick, and I love it. It was all over Tazmania. Again, really good slapstick there, though. I don't know, if we freeze some of those images, is that gonna not age that well, too? Don't freeze any of the images.
You miserable disguise!
That is hugely hilarious. It's not just the extreme close-up on Taz, but just the background going completely red. Like, you don't even see any detail, just totally red. This is where it starts to get pretty dark. This reminds me a lot of Feed the Kitty, the old Chuck Jones cartoon, where the big bulldog thinks his little pet kitten is being baked into a cookie and being mangled up and tossed in the oven, and you're just focusing on his reactions. And the more he thinks that someone dear that is alive is being tormented or even killed, it's terrible. It's like horrific, but it's really, really funny too, especially when you know that no one is being hurt, but just the thought of someone that this person is attached to is having horrible things happen to them, but you know it's not. That's the wiggle room, but it's still pretty dark. Scenes like this are very tricky to lay out because you have to have all of it in one kind of long painting. So you have a very small bottom of the waterfall, and then it starts to get bigger, and then it starts to get small again, but not quite the same size as it was as you started below. So it's very tricky to lay out and paint, but it looks really good. And again, I feel bad for kind of making fun of the backgrounds here earlier, but there is kind of a good angular take on it. So you can do shots like that. It doesn't have to measure out exactly like how tall or wide or any of it is. You can get away with it because it is all exaggerated a little bit and in a fun way.
You'll rue the day you were stitched together.
And here you go. He watches his beloved thrown off a cliff into a waterfall, done in slow motion. The big emotional music is playing. And I remember I was watching this with my brother Rob, and we were both kids, and we're watching this and we're saying, this is kind of sad, isn't it? And we were laughing because we knew it's just a costume. I mean, that there's not a person really in there. But to Taz, that's a real person. That's probably the only person who ever loved him. And he's a teen boy who can't get anyone at all. And here's like the one person that just comes on to him, seems to really like him. And suddenly she's just gone and out of the picture. So there is something almost like a monster movie in this. It's a Little Bride of Frankenstein if the bride was a Tasmanian devil costume. I don't know. This is also a very clever way to save on animation, doing these slow dissolves. You could argue it's a little bit of a callback to before when he has the flower and he's picking the petals, when he doesn't have love, and now he supposedly has love and he has this full flower, but she's gone, so he crushes it and gets revenge on the person who denied him his love.
I believe it was Nietzsche who mused eloquently about love when he said, anybody got a bandage?
That's a real quote too, look it up. God, I wish that was a real quote he said. Oh, and there's your ultimate commentary, love's an ass. So there you go, that is a Young Taz's Fancy. Again, doesn't really get dark until the end. Well, again, depending on how you look at it, you could see Taz sort of going after her as a little creepy and a little dark, but I don't know. I think that wiggle room is there because as she was trying to hit on him first, trying to get a ton of love going, what was kind of all over him at first, and then when it switches, that's when it tries to get away and everything. It's debatable. I get the debate for the other side on this one. A lot of the Pepe Le Pew stuff. Again, I feel like he's supposed to be the loser in that scenario, and again, I'm sure I could find a cartoon where I'd be like her, you know, on it, but the initial setup, I think is very obvious, you know, but anyway, again, that's another video. I think this is pretty fun. I think the idea of being involved with just this ridiculous disguise, and when it's thrown over the waterfall, it's legitimately really sad for Taz, because again, you get the idea, like, this is not a character who encounters anything romantic. So it's both, in my opinion, really funny and really kind of sad, too. Like I said, we were watching as kids, like, I kind of feel for the dumb lug, you know? I feel a little bad for him, just this ridiculous situation. With that said, have you seen this episode, or heck, have you seen Tazmania at all? If you haven't, I really think you're missing out on a very, very fun show. Again, I don't think it's streaming anywhere, but you can get it on DVD. That's how I got this one. I have all the seasons on DVD, and I think it's a lot of fun. If you have seen it or remember it, what were your thoughts on it? Do you remember this episode specifically? Do you think that it is particularly dark, or do you think, nah, it's a costume, there's nothing to it? Let me know what you think. Hey everyone, if there's any particular cartoon you want me to look at as being very dark or twisted, leave it in the comments below. Again, I'm not really looking for movie scenes or cartoons meant for teenagers or older. I'm talking about ones meant for little kids, but still scare the shit out of you. Whether it's an old cartoon or a new cartoon, let me know what you want me to look at.